I just thought I would leave it slightly longer and more uncomfortable than it needed to be. Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning 7 TV. In respect of the fact that we've been joined by a doctor, I don't think we should do our theme song this morning. We'll just think it to our heads, because it's not fair. It's a little bit of an in-joke and it's not really fair to the doctor. We have this little kind of theme tune that we do on a Saturday morning for 7. Saturday morning, 7 TV. It is Karl and it is me. There we go. We've done it anyway. Bless.
Yeah,
you see?
A couple of times, it'll haunt me for a long time, I think.
It'll haunt you because I'll send you a recording. We're thinking of pressing it on 7-inch vinyl. We only need about 4mm of it, but apparently they can't make the record any smaller. But there we go. Anyway, for you folks tuned in this morning, this obviously is live and not a recording. We're just going to ignore all your comments this morning and not engage with them. It's very overcast in England, where Karl lives, out the square window. And
it's totally dark.
And I would just point out, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, that we are joined today by none other than Dr. Peter Wright. That's right, a doctor, a real doctor. Well, you know, a university doctor, so he can't actually save your life. Yeah, it's like a doctor of writing stuff and things. So, is there a doctor in the plane? I'm a doctor. This man's choking to death. Right, that'll make a good story.
I never mentioned any of this when he was taking out my appendix the other week.
I read your story beforehand. What are you worried about?
It was a very good story and not one I can tell my mummy.
The lovely bedside manner.
So that was the story. More like in the bed manner. But anyway, I digress. Peter is from Edge Hill University. I was going to do the bit where I go, is it okay for me to call you Peter? But I actually genuinely felt you would go, no, it's Dr. Wright.
Please call me Peter.
No, I'm just going to call you Dr. Wright for badness. Peter, of course, I had the small opportunity of meeting at, jeez, it seems like a lifetime ago now, Karl and Peter.
It is.
Yeah, at a games convention in Birmingham.
Those outside things with lots of people that we used to do.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember those.
Remember those?
Yeah, and that was for PULP. Not the band. Your game. Do you remember your game, Karl? PULP?
Vaguely. I don't know. It's all a bit of a blur. Was that last year, wasn't it? No.
Was
that
last year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
Dear
Okay.
God, this has gone on for an awful long time, and I don't mean this chat. Give me 10 minutes and it'll feel like it's gone on for a really long time. But anyway. So, we did do a little bit of a chat with Peter and some of the team. I say some of the team, there was a very talkative girl, can't remember her name. But she I don't know, she was kind of short and angry. She took over from you and she kind of said lots of things. But there was a lot of noise, so we missed out on most of that. But, you know, Edge Hill still got a fair mention. But now we get to talk to you. So this is supposed to be the kind of, I don't know, mature moment for 7 TV of a Saturday morning, isn't it?
Can I get a pipe?
I was going to bring my smoking jacket. We're going to fluff this, so I'm just going to crack on with it. So, Peter, I have to ask you, for the advantage of the boys and girls at home, Edge Hill University, now, other than its obvious claim to fame, which everybody knows, the blank looks are worrying me. Okay, Edge Hill University was the first non-denominational teaching university for women.
That's right. Yeah, based in Liverpool originally, in Edge Hill in Liverpool.
There we go.
It relocated out to Ormskirk in the 1930s.
There we are. You see, so good claim to fame. I'm slightly disappointed that Karl didn't leap in with that. No, I've got to give him the opportunity.
It's almost like you were reading that from Google.
No, it's from Wikipedia.
I like your research. It's very good.
Like I'm going to know stuff. You don't even know the rules for your own game. Why should I know stuff about Edge Hill University?
No attempts to hide that at all. There was a blatant just reading it as it's cue cards.
I was tempted to actually drag the screen into shot because it would come up on the camera and still pretend that I knew it. No, I do have to confess, Peter, that earlier on when I was talking to Karl, I went, the university that Peter's at, isn't it Coal Hill? And he's like, no, it's Edge Hill. And I went, oh yeah, Coal Hill's from Doctor Who. Okay. Right. How did you end up roped into this whole gaming lark?
It all started with an email from a friend in Canada who said, have you seen these great miniatures from future freedom fighters? I became a customer of Karl's. And then we met a couple of times at UK Games Expos. And then in 2017, we met properly and we had time to have a chat. We started talking about mutual love of Edgar Rice Burroughs and all things pulpy and stuff like that. And I said, it'd be fun to maybe do like a program guide for a Hollow Earth adventure, something like that. And so started working on that and having a chat with Karl online. And at the same time, Edge Hill were working on their third project for Edge Hill University Press. So in 2015, Edge Hill started a small university press that worked with other publishers to give students experience with editing and liaising with authors and things like that. And I said to Karl, would you be interested in perhaps working with the university on a cooperative and collaborative kind of game development? And that was 7TV Pulp. So it came out of conversations with that, and then I got quite a lot of support from the university in terms of encouraging me to do it. What I didn't want to do was do the same as my colleagues had done with their books, which was really have students only in sort of editorial roles and liaison roles. I wanted to do something creative, and 7TV lent itself quite well to that because it was about film, it was about TV, it was about action and adventure and that kind of stuff. And so I said to Karl, would you take a chance on dozen and a half students who've not written anything professionally but have a lot of experience writing as undergraduates, and let's see if we can create a really good game with them. And Karl went, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And so we did, and the students were great. It took 2 years to do, so we started in sort of November 2017, and we launched it in 2019 at the UK Games Expo, and they were fab. And some of them have since gone on to work for John Wiley, the publisher, Oxford University Press. One of them's works for Superdry, content writer for Superdry. So it's been really brilliant for giving students or helping students acquire something that they often leave college or university without, which is experience. And they kind of fall foul of that thing. So you've got a degree. What else have you done? And Edge Hill University Press was set up to answer that question, really, to give the students experience and skills and that kind of thing. And then we've done the same with 7TV Pulp under the kind of auspices of Edge Hill University Press.
Brilliant.
That's probably far too long an answer, wasn't it?
No, it was lovely. And it
started with miniatures and finished with a game, so it was quite good.
And it started with a customer, which is where I think where an awful lot of people start with, Karl. I've since realised that since you are both here, for the sense of balance, I'm going to kind of alternate between you like they would on the telly. So Karl, sensible question for you. What has been the big difference for Crooked Dice having Edge Hill on board? I'm going to stick with Pulp for now. For having Edge Hill on board with Pulp, as opposed to previously with Spy-Fi.
Really, just being able to have a team. That was the big draw for me in the first place, was to be able to work with teams again. I come from a publishing background where it was, copywriters and illustrators and photographers in there, and I missed that. It's lovely doing everything on your own, but you're doing everything on your own, which is can be hard work. So we had a dedicated team in there that we could show a little bit of what the industry was about, give them a bit of experience, and really just give them a foot in the door. But it was working with teams again, which was the thing that I was quite excited about right from the get go. really. But as Pete said, they were great, and there was a wide range of skills in there as well. There was some editorial stuff, but they were writing content right from the get go, all through the kind of first year, which is where we just developing all of those profiles and the other elements that we need. And then the year after that is a bit of a change into kind of more marketing of the project. So hopefully they got a load of kind of transferable skills that they could take off into the workplace, really. And it is, as Peter said, there's some of them that have basically, when you go into an interview, you go, look, I've done a thing already. Is gives you an advantage over all the other people in the room. That's really where we were when it comes down to it. What we were kind of trying to give them, just that bit of extra experience, which I hope we managed to do, and had a bit of fun along the way as well.
Right. So basically, it got you out of doing some work. Peter, I mean, obviously doing something like creating a game, especially I'm going to say within the 7TV universe, because that's kind of what it is now. It's kind of become its own thing where 7TV has these different little pocket genres, but there's a continuity there. But of course, the downside for you, and I guess for Karl, is you had a team around you worked on PULP. They all done a great job. And as you just said, they've all gone off and got jobs now. And you've got a bunch of new students. So you're kind of back to square one.
We were lucky because we had first years, second years, third years, and postgraduates working on PULP. We've got 2 students who'd worked on PULP in the final year that have done the first year of fantasy. So that was really nice to have their continuation from one project to the next. And, they'll probably reapply for fantasy year 2 as well. So we do get that continuity. Then we've got the second years now, new second years who were first years last year. Some of them are going to be reapplying and staying on. So there's continuity there. And if we're mad enough to do a third project, I suspect some of the new second years will stay on to be third years or as third years. And so they'll have done sort of 3 years of 7TVs while they've been doing their degree. So there's always that little bit of continuity, which takes the pressure off from starting all over again with a brand new set of interns, brand new set of students, and going, okay, so again, what we're going to do, we're going to go and we're going to learn 7TV all over again. Although the refresher is quite helpful because I can never remember the rules from one year to the next, to be honest.
Neither can Karl.
That is true.
Yeah, that is true.
We learned a huge amount from the first year, though, coming into doing fantasy this year. Because first time round, how is this going to work? We were kind of figuring that out as we were going along. And Pete was fantastic at kind of like guiding it and building it. But how do you take a game and then make that into something that you can teach and people can develop, rather than to be kind of games designers from the off? And a lot of the modules that Peter already does are kind of instill that into the kind of the skills that the students are bringing in. But it was still a bit of a tough hill to climb.
I'm just enjoying seeing Karl struggle with sensible answers. Normally he gets to just talk about cartoons and sing on a Saturday morning, and it's like, oh, no, I have to actually think about this. No.
You like?
No, I do. Just when Peter was saying that, I just did this lovely vision of a bunch of students kind of for some reason gathered around the watercolor because the office is my only point of reference for group activities, and it's like, oh yeah, fantasy, yeah. I wish Susan had been here. Oh, you never knew Susan, of course, yeah. We lost her last year. She was just sort of, because Susan's off working for Superdry now and making £55,000 a year, whilst we're stuck here trying to think, what other words can we use for magical acts? And somebody's sitting in the back going, oh my God, I'm at university and I have to come up with another name for magical acts. What have I done?
We did hit that wall. After 230 profiles, actually, we ran out of words and adjectives to describe things. It was like, there are no words. How do you say malevolent? We need another word.
Peter, I actually remember that because we were on Saturday morning talking, and we always had a wee chat beforehand. He was like, "Yeah, Peter actually says we've run out of words." I went, "What?" He says, no, we've run out of words. Apparently there only are X number of words you can use. I went, that doesn't sound right. And he's like, no. And you could just see it in his eyes. He was like, no, really?
Yeah.
Couldn't do it anymore.
At the beginning of lockdown, we had all the profiles first and second drafted. They were pretty much second drafted, and we decided to sit down and go through them all in our spare time, such as it was. And yeah, by the end of it, it took about 7 or 8 weeks to go through it all, off and on. And by the end of it, a pair of us were just staring blankly at one another. It's like, I can't think of another word. I can scarcely speak anymore. So, can I show Andy the stack of profile cards? So by the time we'd finished, by the time the students had worked their way through a ton of fantasy movies and fantasy TV shows, and we'd compiled the list of the profiles we thought would work, we ended up with a stack of profiles, which ended up that thick. So that's why we ran out of words. All the words in the English language are in that deck. That's it. Very big reason why. Just buy some TV fantasy.
Yeah, do you need to cram study for your English Lit exam? No problem. Buy 7 TV fantasy.
Yeah, you never have to read another fantasy novel. You know.
There's the thing, Peter. I mean, this is the thing. I remember you mentioning at the time we spoke at the expo about for pulp. A lot of the kids were like, "Pulp? What do you mean?" Was there the same issue with fantasy? Well, I imagine not quite the same issue, but was there initially oh yes, fantasy, and then you discovered that what they thought of as fantasy was actually quite a narrow track?
Yeah, I mean, most of the students are sort of 18, 19, and yeah, they're obviously their reading experiences are kind of commensurate for their age group, really. So everybody pretty much had read Harry Potter. Everybody had seen Lord of the Rings, and you know, there were one or two other things that people had engaged with. But like pulp, there's a whole array of stuff that they never encountered. So it was great fun. The university very kindly bought a whole raft of DVDs for us, and we were able to sort of give them out. So you know, people were really pleased to get Lord of the Rings. It was like, oh, I know this one. This is great. And then we started giving people, you know, Hawk the Slayer and Sword and Sorcerer and Beastmaster and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the reactions were often familiar from the reaction to pulp. Was like, what the hell have you given me? What is it? What is this? Why is this man running around half naked with 2 ferrets? It's like, look,
I hear that a lot.
you come to university to have your horizons broadened. We're broadening your horizons. You know, here, watch Dragon Slayer, which has still got the best Disney princess in it. But it was, yeah, I think this group found engaging with fantasy much easier than the last couple of years when they were trying to engage with something that, you know, 1930s and 40s. I mean, it's 80, 90 years ago. And it was completely alien. The politics of them were alien. The representation of, you know, different groups was really alien to them, and rightly so as well, given, you know, the content of some of those serials. And just the kind of wooden acting, the fact that they move at a snail's pace. This thing's 4.5 hours long, 15 episodes, and you could probably cut it to 90 minutes. And yeah, it took them a long time to get through all of it, because I think I gave everybody 4 or 5 serials to watch. It was kind of torture, really, I think, for some of them. But they did it. So unless you got a really, really bad selection of fantasy movies, and somebody did get the entire Mythica box set to watch, there was, you know, it was a bit of a grind for some, but for most people, it was fine. They got to watch Ray Harryhausen movies and things like that. So it was quite good. And then some people had read a range of fantasy, but, you know, people's reading is always exists on a kind of moving wavefront. So the stuff I grew up reading, the fantasy I grew up reading, so people like Anne McCaffrey and Michael Moorcock and Robert E. Howard and stuff like that, most of them really hadn't heard of. They'd grown up reading kind of contemporary fantasy, largely George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones series, and you don't really get much chance to read anything else if you're reading that, because
Yeah.
they're all like thick as a telephone directory.
Yeah, he used all the words in the English language too.
Yeah, and the funny thing about George R. R. Martin is he's a great short story writer. He's a really good short story writer.
That's an interesting backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
and much more generous than I might have given him. You see,
I think with Pulp they did a cracking job, because it kind of, what they identified in that was sort of the character parts of it, because that's what it was. It's kind of, we always described it as like it was overall roles with Pulp, that people were taking, jobs almost that people were taking. Fantasy actually was a bit trickier because of the breadth of it, of what you had. We thought that would be the strength of it, but sometimes it was really difficult to just kind of nail down an archetype to not one particular thing, but they were really like the trusted companion, kind of Samwise was a bit of a pig, if I remember. It was just really difficult to just quite get it to work.
Look, I would agree with you, because your embittered, hardened detective in noir is the same no matter what. He drinks too much, there's a dame who's too much trouble, he's cynical about everything, and the gun's the kind of the last resort and doesn't change. Yeah. Whereas Robin Hood is a fighter, a swordsman, a disguise artist, a comedian, a jokester, a lover, and a hero to men. He's several characters.
That's a good example of one, actually, because we keep coming back to the Venn diagram of bits and pieces of that. He can actually be 2 or 3 different archetypes, and they all work perfectly well with him. He can be a dashing rogue, or he can be an agile archer, or he can be a bit of a swashbuckler, depending on whether you're watching an Errol Flynn or Kevin Costner or whatever whatever you want to talk. He's been interpreted that many times, and often with different kind of facets of what he's trying to do. That sometimes was a little bit of a challenge to just nail it down, as you say. The Pulp ones, there's a couple of good hooks that you can easily identify with that particular archetype. Fantasy actually was a bit more multifaceted, more than we thought, honestly.
Yeah, I think Pulp had the advantage as well of being kind of organised in genres for us. They're really recognisable genres. And once we decided we couldn't do the Western because it was a little bit too different. We couldn't do sort of the air adventures because they didn't really work on the tabletop. We were left with the 6 we used pretty much. And it was only a case of naming them, but they really organised themselves. But fantasy is never marketed in genres. You kind of go to literature really to try and find the genres that exist. So you're looking at sword and sorcery and folktale and things like that. But movies tend to be just labelled fantasy. That's it, really. So to impose 7TV's kind of generic structure on them, or generic organisation on them, we had to think really quite hard about which ones sat where, and then which archetypes sat across 2 or 3 of the genres. That was the thing I think we spent most of Karl and I spent most of our time thinking about was where do those profiles fit across the genres. And I think we had to make some compromise. I certainly made some compromises because I was a bit more kind of, no, it's got to be here. And Karl said, well, yeah, but it's got to work as a game. And Karl was absolutely right. And I think we have managed to organise them really well. And we went back to the students and asked what they thought from their viewing experience. And eventually we agreed, and that was quite good. We didn't fall out about it, but we actually, the team kind of consolidated around those ideas, which was great.
You're not proper games designers yet if he's haven't fallen out about it. But no, it's funny. I mean, even from a player point of view, I mean, whenever Karl started talking to the likes of ourselves about the play testing for Father's Day, one of the first things was, do up a cast. And it still took a change in gear to kind of go, to stick with the Robin Hood. You can't have Robin Hood in 7TV. You can, as long as you decide which version of him it is at the time, because you kind of forget the game is about this moment in time in the fight, and he's not being a lover, and he's not being a hero to men. He's swinging on ropes, and he's fighting people with swords because it's the bit of the battle through the castle. And it is, even as a player, it's hard to get your head just to make that switch to go, well, it is Robin Hood, but he just doesn't have to be all things to all people right now.
Yeah.
I'd hope what we've got in the breadth of the profiles is that you can, if you want to do that, if you want to do the Love a Bet or you want to do Robin and Marion, you could do that as well. So
I'm tempted to say I'd like to see the lover bit in the tabletop, but that could be misconstrued.
I clear it off.
Yeah, no sharp edges, no sharp edges. Right, getting back to university, Karl, before you take us down a track that none of us want to travel yet again. Peter, from the point of view of the university then, what do you think the long-term benefit is? Because obviously, at some point Karl's going to get too big for his boots and he's going to go off and live in Morocco on his yacht and stuff like that there. But I mean, is this something, is working on this something that you can see broadening out into other games, to yourselves developing your own games, be it board games or whatever? Or is this very nice to arrive every year from Karl with a project and just work on that and then get back to doing some real work?
I think it's really nice to be able to work with an external company, and certainly I'm not looking to work with any other company apart from Karl and Crooked Dice, because we've got a great relationship. But I think once you start thinking about developing your own games, it becomes a business, and there's a danger of losing the focus, which is helping students develop skills and experience that's going to help them in life. And that's what our business is. That's what we're doing it for. That's part of the university's business and what I'm doing it for. And I think if we did decide to go, okay, we're going to set up our own small company, we've then got to think about manufacturing, publishing, typesetting, all of the details that Karl takes care of and that we don't worry about. We just send him stuff and say, there you go, work your magic on that. And, Karl got the joy of laying out all of those cards, and all we had to do was write the material, really. So I don't necessarily think it's something we would look to do. I've got a couple of students that have gone off and developed their own game independently, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them to see how it's going, but I know it's going to press very soon. So that's really nice. So if we can foster independent games developers, I would far sooner do that than try and build a kind of games company within the university, which would just, I think, be far too complicated.
Make it too
for us to manage. Job for me, which means I'd have to stop kind of doing what I do as part of my day job, really, which is teach and things like that, and research and what have you. So, yeah, I think we'd always look to have a really good working relationship with somebody who is really generous with their time, really generous with their energy, and it has been, absolutely faultless in it sounds like I'm trying to,
you've got the job. You don't have to butter him up anymore. You've got the job.
but just having a working relationship from somebody with a very, very different background, a very different eye to things, from the academic perspective, which is what I bring, really. It's brilliant, and I'm not quite sure if other companies would take the risk. Or I know Chaosium have just been working with an American college, and they've just produced a Call of Cthulhu scenario, which won an award this year, which is great. So there are a number of companies that are starting to work with universities, and I think that's really marvellous for the students. It's brilliant.
Lovely. Well, to be fair, we all know Karl's reasonably easily to manipulate. So, I mean, if he did come up with a game idea, you just have to kind of, massage his ego the right way, and they'll end up publishing it. And you can sort of, sit back in your eyes and go, "That's right, Karl. That's a great game you just came up with."
I don't know how many times that's actually happened, Andy, already.
Well, we know how many miniatures have been added to the Crooked Dice range because enough people throw sticks at you and you go, "All right, I'll make them."
I'm not the fond of good ideas here. There's a million people out there who've got better ones than me. So
you've just proved my point. I thank you.
Still won't make the dustbin robots from the Undersea Kingdom, though.
No, that won't happen.
Not a chance.
He does unfortunately have a strange ability to spot a bad plan and just won't go down that road. Yeah, his IP radar or his no, that's just silly. Stop it.
I'll just interject here slightly and just say I have been talking to someone today about a milk float for you.
Yes. Sorry, that was.
You said there were no silly ideas.
I maybe give away slight lack of reserve there for a moment.
I didn't notice. I don't think anyone noticed.
Shh, that's good. That's good.
That milk float still has been robots by the time you factor in the lead, I tell you.
Do you know, actually, if you're desperate for some dustbin robots, I've a lad who's pretty nifty as a sculptor with the green stuff, Peter, and if you just wanted a couple of dustbin robots for yourself, I would say he could sort you out. And then Karl gets jealous and goes, well, maybe I'd like some dustbin robots. That's how you get them. That's how you get them.
30 dustbin robots.
Oh dear! No, the milk float's got to go. It has to not go. Has to go into production. We need that. And my idea for the villainous crew. I'm not good with the words, you know, like you pair with your English dictionary and things.
What are you doing now?
I'm good with
where's going with this?
I'm good with ideas on you know, figures like villainous casts for Craig Island.
I've had my fun.
You've had my fun. You're bad man. Bad man. Oh, there's my train of thoughts just been battered again. Right. Sorry, but from the students' point of view then, what has your feedback from them been? Because obviously you got to do Expo last year. You're not going to get to do Expo this year, or probably next year. Maybe the year after. I mean, does this year's crew feel they're missing out from that public engagement aspect of it, from the sort of the being able to meet the buying public? Is it going to be a different kettle of fish, or how are you going to sort of offer them an experience that equates to it?
Well, we've started to work out our plan for this year, because obviously, as you say, it's going to be really, really different. So we're going to build a much better blog than we built for PULP. The PULP blog was really nice to do, but I think by the end of it, most of us had run out of energy and things like that. So it kind of foundered a little bit. We're already planning on the content for the blog and working out the structure and things. So a lot of the student writing will be writing content for that. So they'll have that experience, and that's also something nice that they can put on their CV and show prospective employers. We're going to see if we can try an online 7TV fantasy launch and try and do something in that way, perhaps around the weekend that the UK Games Expo would have been on if it doesn't go ahead. And then there's a whole array of possible developments that they can also become involved with. But I think that the remarkable thing about the students at this moment in time, and I'm talking about the first years who have only been teaching for a week, and our new second and third years as they come back, is they're all really flexible. They've really accommodated the oddest circumstances that we find ourselves in, and that's true for the 7TV team as well. So what we tend to do with 7TV, we appoint the interns for a year, so they get the experience of making an application, being interviewed, and then doing a year, and then their internships finish, and those who want to carry on apply again and go through another interview process so they get more experience again. So we don't really know how many are going to apply this year. We suspect that it's going to be most of them. So the fact that Karl and I have both been fielding questions from them suggests that they're really keen, and they'll just accommodate the changes. I think they'll be disappointed not to go to the expo if it doesn't go ahead, but there's always next year, and it will be about the year after 2022, and it will be nice to do perhaps a big reunion there, because some of them will have graduated, some of them will have been graduated 2 years, they'll have got into careers and things like that. So to bring them all back and have a kind of 7TV meetup, that might be quite a lot of fun to do. But certainly we've got things cooking for next year. It just depends on what circumstances we find ourselves in. But we've been working all over summer anyway with the team remotely. And again, they've just adapted to working remotely really well. They've been just really impressive, taking everything in their stride. Well, they really impressed me. I think Karl's found something similar too. In fact, Karl's been working with one of our interns all summer.
Yeah, I mean, from a from a fantasy point of view, we delivered the students delivered all of the profiles and all of the work for the artifacts and all the other bits that you've got the playtest cards for way ahead of time. We're much further ahead with this project than we were with PULP, and that's, I think, because we're a bit more familiar with what we're doing. But the team had a lot more profiles. I'm going to say almost twice as many, probably by the end of it, to do. So they've been powering through right away. Yeah, the expo it'll be a shame, and I'm not speaking for the university at this point, but there's no reason why we couldn't, when the next expo turns up, we get people back, and students will still get the experience of being able to kind of show their work and demo it to people. That weekend was really remarkable, just seeing people that you'd known for a couple of years, that when you first met them, with great respect to them, you wouldn't have thought they'd be in that. How busy is that hall, Andy? I mean, it's rammed and it's packed, and they were front of house speaking to people and showing them the game and kind of doing that with kind of enthusiasm and confidence, which was great to see, really, honestly, considering that's what we hoped for at the beginning of the project. So no reason why we couldn't bring some people back to try and get that experience when the event's next back on. But the second year is much more about marketing anyway, so right from the off, we are, the sort of challenge I'm going to say is, how can we work on the assumption that the expo is going to happen, but if it doesn't, we've got content and material that we could deploy digitally if we wanted to.
Yeah.
We've got to kind of go down both routes, really. It doesn't look great. I'm assuming it's still going to be a Nightingale hospital, but, who knows?
Captive audience, mate. Captive audience.
Yeah. Just go there kids on a trolley, getting each person to play.
Just touch your credit card to that. There we go. Well, by the same token, the WEEGAMERS, be it myself or be it Justin, will be more than happy to do a few interviews with some of the design team students as well. Bring them on a bit like this here and just have a chat to them about sort of their experiences and their thoughts.
No,
We'll not ask them any trick questions. We'll not ask them how it ends or anything.
How does it end?
Hawk the Slayer, were you awake to the end? How does it end? You didn't watch Karl. What do you know? That's it. I can just have Justin sitting here along with me, and you have your students there, and Justin going, right. So, Excalibur, 15 minutes 32 seconds. Yeah. What's the line? I don't know. I thought so. Right. Just for a bit intimidating interview experience for them.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll be the nice one and go, listen, don't worry about it. Karl doesn't understand the rules either. So how did you make all the bit from the start to the end sound interesting? Because he sucks at that part.
Rude. Ain't rude yet.
We've always been lucky that at least one of the team has really understood how the rules work. So it's like, oh, thank goodness we've got somebody who knows how it works.
This is class. It's just like a real gaming group. We've got one person who understands the rules. So do we. We call him Roger. Appropriate Roger. Oh, beautiful. Guys, listen. Not being rude here, but that's nearly an hour that we have talked. And don't worry, Peter. This is exactly how 7TV ends on a Saturday morning, because obviously it's live now. Daylight and look, it's really bright behind me.
It must be there. Yeah.
Yes.
It's probably just an eclipse or something.
It's rain. Maybe there's a big Halfords lorry parked outside. I don't know why I chose Halfords. There's a big lorry parked outside your window.
Delivering paint.
Collecting all the Kickstarters for the post.
That'll be it.
Yeah. I can't let a Saturday morning go by without this. So, folks, regulars will know that often of a Saturday morning, Karl and I have a wee jibe about, order forms and Excel spreadsheets and all the rest of it. Where's my parcel, Karl?
Well, I'm not responsible for your postal service in there. It's gone. Definitely went. I reckon it's
I think
it's in a skip somewhere around the corner from you.
I think you'll find you are responsible. I think you'll find under the Consumer Trade Act, 1974.
You haven't got my goods. I think you'll find.
I think you'll find. But we'll forgive you. We'll forgive you because there's a milk float and the fact, everything's getting blamed in COVID now. So yeah, my parcel hasn't arrived a week later because of COVID.
That's what I was going to say. COVID, definitely COVID.
Yeah.
Or your posties chucked it in a skip.
The postman got upset because he heard the president got taken into hospital, and he was so upset he just couldn't finish his round for a week and a half. It's taken my parcel longer to get here than it took the president to recover from COVID. Anyway, not that we're going to get political. Dr. Peter, right? Sorry, Dr. Wright. I knew we'd get it right in the end. It's been an absolute pleasure having somebody of your caliber on with us of a Saturday morning. It's raised the tone no end.
Taking all the fun out of it as well, I would imagine. Thank you so much, Andy. It's been a pleasure. It really has. Thank you so much.
You don't have to say that. We know how badly we suck. But no, it has. It's been lovely, chatty. It's been nice to sort of get that insight because we sit here and we look at Karl's miniatures, which somebody else designed, and we hear about all the sort of the cool stuff that other people have done for him. So it's nice to actually meet the. He throws such lady strops. Hey,
that's it.
You can't complain. I never even mentioned your haircut this morning.
No, not bad. I don't know what she's done.
Nobody knows what she's done.
Nobody knows what she's done. I'm wearing a woolly hat from now on.
Peter, if you want a bit of a shock, you should log into the YouTube channel for WeGamers and check out some of the previous Saturday mornings to get an eye-opener as to the range of skills that Karl's hair has. Yeah. It's the most diverse actor between us.
Over the summer, when we were all locked down, I watched it grow gradually from near to a buzz cut to something approaching Cousin It.
Yeah.
And then...
yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was all off again. So
yeah, there's the odd sort of show where it kind of almost changed what it was doing halfway through. It was so.
I'm only jealous. Mine's just does one thing, and that's leave. So
yours is retreating to make room for the brains.
So I don't know where Andy's hair stops, the background starts most of the time.
Yeah, it's just all hair. Mine's is getting ridiculously long. Not that I'm trying to rub it into both of you, but it is getting shockingly long.
Mullet.
Yeah,
it's Billy Ray Cyrus at the moment.
It's everywhere. It's just yeah. But we don't want any more comments from our viewers or postcards about hair products and that. So let's knock that in the head.
Give.
They're very unforgiving, especially that Justin one and Fishboy. And there you go, Peter. This is what Saturday mornings tend to be like for Karl and I. We drink coffee, we talk about cartoons, and usually end up playing with our hair. It's like Little House on the Prairie or going around to your friend Susan's house to play with Barbie.
Did they do that in Little House on the Prairie? Is that what they did?
That's what they did, yeah. They played with their hair or stuff, I'm sure.
I just remember them running through fields.
That was only when they were being chased by Leatherface.
That was the best episode. Definitely the best episode.
The best episode has to be the one in Family Guy where they move all the furniture in their house and she trips over it. Oh, we're making fun of a blind cartoon character. That's really not good, guys. That's not cool. Not cool. We were on such a high and we've brought it down.
Ruined it.
We've just brought it to our usual level of gutter humour.
Now you've upset me. My hair's not behaving. We might have to do this again.
Do you know what? I just can't be annoyed doing it again. Let's do it again next week instead. Peter, we won't annoy you next week because a man of your caliber and profession has far too much else to do. But we do mean it. If you want to fire some students onto the wheels of the bus, I mean, if you want to give some students the opportunity of being interviewed, yeah, we can do that, couldn't we, Karl?
Well, I would suggest possibly they watch this first before they make a decision on that.
If they're not going to bother watching the end of Hawk Slayer, I don't know why the hell you would even send them the link.
I'm pretty sure a couple of them will be delighted to join you.
Well, that just proves nothing. I'm not going to say be nice, Andy. Be the nice Andy. Be the nice Andy. There we go. Right, anyway, it's been another fantastic Saturday morning. They didn't notice. And tune in again next week where we'll be here and Karl won't be pointing over his shoulder and advertising Nike. It's not like you to wear branded tops.
It's cold in here tonight.
Today?
This
morning?
This morning.
This morning.
In the morning.
Yes.
It's cold.
Oh, I'm enjoying my morning coffee.
We suspended Bully for so long and then I've ruined it at the end. We'll have to edit that out.
Cheers, the story of your life according to your wife. Right, I think it's time to roll credits. So on that note, I don't actually know if I can roll the credits this morning, Karl, because, you know, being live and all, it's difficult. I'm gonna have a go.
Yeah, move on.
I'm gonna have a go.